All
Yeah,
right.
I always love the contrast between our two videos.
Yeah.
You look like you're in like a green room, like you've got all fucking equipment and you're like well lit, and I'm like, I just crawled out from my dungeon.
Welcome back to Adventures Unpacked. We're Adventures Live. My name is Noah. I'm your host, and joining me, well, I guess Jeff will be hosting today, and I will be joining Jeff.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I
today
love
we're
it. I'm running the ship. I
so.
am the captain
I
now.
feel like you've got one hand on the wheel, and I've got the other hand like firmly trying to continue to drive straight.
You are Tom Hanks in this scenario. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so today we're talking about our latest video, Kayak Starved Rock, which was my adventure. I went down to Starved Rock and kayaked the Illinois River, which was a first for me, even though I'm kind of from the Chicago area. I've never been to Starved Rock, so that was kind of crazy. Um, but we're hanging out and we're gonna talk about it. It's gonna be probably a lighter episode today, just because it was a short adventure and we're kind of splitting it up into two episodes, because next episode I'm also doing a, like, if this was Kayak Starved Rock, next will be like Hike Starved Rock is kind of what we're going for here. So we're just gonna kind of hang out and talk, really.
Yeah, man. I got a pack of ciders.
Oh, you got a pack.
And oh yeah, yeah. You said you wanted to hang, so we're
We are
hanging.
hanging.
Um,
I'm into my blue moon already as well, so.
nice, nice. And yeah, I mean, this is probably a great time to lay out like not every video with Adventures Live is gonna have to be 6 weeks of intense activity.
Please.
We will have some of those really high
Hmm.
octane things, and we're gonna have real chill ones too. So we like to span the gamut.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's
absolutely.
actually, is that a phrase?
I
Am I
think
just
it's
pulling
close
that out of my
enough.
butt?
I think it's kind of close enough.
Gets into conversation.
It gets the idea across. Yeah, so kind of a chiller episode, one with our adventure where it wasn't me sifting through 6 weeks of Jeff in the backcountry. It was 2 days of
Yeah.
me on a river, so that's a lot easier to deal with. But it seems like everyone liked it. So if you watched that video, a grand adventure that Jeff hosted, thank you so much. And if you haven't, go check that out. It was a good one.
Yeah, it was all right. That took you so long because there was so much to go through.
That's
It
very
was
true.
ridiculous.
So long that you are actually in a different country now. I don't know if we've mentioned that in any of our videos or podcasts. I think we've mentioned it on our socials, on Instagram. Sometimes we'll do a little behind the scenes over there. But we've been downplaying that heavily, just trying to get through some of our backlog and tell the story that we're trying to tell over on our YouTube channel. But where is Jeff? Where are you, dude?
That's a fun new segment. We should do a recurring segment. Where in the world is Jeff right now?
Hmm.
Okay, yeah. So I'm actually in. Sorry, I'm gonna jostle you for a minute. Um, I am in New Zealand. First of all, if you didn't know, I'm in my van right now. Miracles of technology that we're able to record this, and I'm in my van.
Very much so.
Um, and I'm in the South Island and around a town called Wanaka, um, which is like kind of central, south central. It's near a lot of the big mountains, and specifically, I'm on the north shore of Lake Hawea, and this is my view
Yeah, this would
right
be a really good
outside
time
at the
to
back of
say,
my
if you're
van.
listening to this podcast on Spotify or Apple Music, jump over to YouTube, because this is a very visual segment where Jeff is holding his phone outside of his van, pointing at a lake and a mountain in New Zealand.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to describe the mountains with the clouds, Noah? You want to use your Tom Hanks silky voice?
I mean, they're pretty disappointing. Like, I wouldn't want to be there for sure. Like, I'm glad I'm here in the Midwest, where everything's very flat and not nearly as
Mm.
misty or majestic as that.
We say we break some of these brewskis out.
I mean, you got to catch up. I'm almost done with mine. It took that long for you to set up. What are you drinking today?
I'm drinking Monteith's Brewing Company crushed apple cider, made with
Interesting.
100% crushed New Zealand apples.
Oh, wow.
Brewed on the West Coast. Oh, that is lovely. All right. Ugh. Let's act. Let's act as though this is going to help us pay the bills. Let's keep these little LED lights on.
Yeah.
Let's pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and get to work
That's
recording this podcast.
that's the American in you still talking. You haven't shaken it off yet.
Mm-mm. No, I have not quite yet.
Yeah,
But I have started calling a lot more people mate.
oh yeah, mates come through.
Yeah, mates come through a little bit. Kind of pick that up. I'm definitely keen on some things like saying keen.
Yeah, no, wow.
Yeah.
Cultured guy over here, huh, guys? Dude goes to
You
New
know, I
Zealand.
don't like to brag. I'm just a bit of a world traveler.
I guess so.
Anyway, enough of our shenanigans.
Hey guys, Noah here again. I'm gonna just take a moment real quick and read off some information about this park because it is a smaller state park and maybe less well known than some of the other, national parks and bigger parks that we've talked about in the past. I just wanted to take a quick second by myself and just kind of give you guys an explanation of the area and kind of give you guys a better idea of what this park looks like. And then we could jump in with Jeff and continue our normal conversation. So Starved Rock is a state park located in north central Illinois. The park itself covers about 2,630 acres of the south bank of the Illinois River. It's about an hour and a half drive from Chicago, which is crazy because I'm from the Chicago area and I've never actually made it out to this park. Growing up, I feel like I've always heard about Starved Rock. Starved Rock and Turkey Run are the two state parks I feel like I hear about most often. And I've never actually made it out to either of those. So this past time I made it out to Starved Rock, which was exciting and it surpassed my expectations, which is always nice. It's also crazy that I've never made it out there because it's actually the most popular park in the state of Illinois, bringing in over 2 million visitors annually. The park is most well known for its unique topography, local legends, and its unfortunate murders of 3 Chicago women in 1960. We'll probably cover that a little bit more in the next episode of the podcast because in the next adventure, I actually make it out to the caves that the bodies were found in. So we'll dive into that case a little bit more in the next episode. So just kind of a quick location profile. Northern Illinois has a humid continental climate with mild summers and cold winters, kind of like most of the Midwest. The highest temperatures of the park have been recorded at 112 Fahrenheit, that's 44 Celsius, in 1936, and a record low of negative 25 degrees Fahrenheit and negative 32 degrees Celsius in 1985. January is the coldest month in the park, with July being the warmest, and June is the wettest. So if you're trying to visit the numerous waterfalls throughout the park, this is probably the month that you're going to want to go because they do dry up in the latter half of the year. Or you can even visit in the winter where some of the waterfalls tend to freeze and many visitors come to see the solid waterfalls and even some people will ice climb up them. In addition to the main sandstone butte that gives the park its name, Starved Rock is also known for its numerous canyons and outcropping of St. Peter's sandstone. If you've ever visited the park and you've seen St. Peter's sandstone before, you know how pure and soft the sandstone actually is. You can actually take your hand and rub it against some of the rock features and it'll leave some of the rock on your hand. So that being the case, rock climbing is extremely dangerous and not allowed at the park. If I'm remembering correctly, I actually believe a man lost his life about a week after we were there because he was climbing and he took a fall. The sandstone is typically buried, but it was exposed about 14 to 17,000 years ago when a catastrophic flood known as the Kankakee Torrent melted through a nearby glacier and ripped through the area, helping to create the park's signature geological features that are very unusual for the Central Plains. The earliest known group of inhabitants was recorded by the colonial French that were passing through the area, and they were the Kaskaskia people, who had large settlements on the north side of the Illinois River. The Kaskaskia people were members of the Illinois Confederation, also known as the Illinois, who inhabited the region from the 16th to the 18th centuries. In 1673, the first Europeans explored the northern portions of the Mississippi River, and on their return, they navigated the Illinois River, which was a very convenient route back to Lake Michigan. And then forgive me for some of the pronunciation of these French words. I tried my best, but I'm sure I'm mispronouncing these. In the winter of 1682, French explorers La Salle, Cavalier, and Tonty built Fort St. Louis atop the large sandstone butte that they called La Roche. or the Rock. It overlooked the river and was a strategic military post that allowed for control of trade routes on the river during the conflicts with the Iroquois. Though the fort was eventually abandoned in the early 1700s, it marked a critical chapter in the European colonial activity in the Midwest. There are several stories as well about how Starved Rock truly got its name, but one of the most well-known tales is a tale of vengeance. According to the legend, in 1769, after Chief Pontiac of the Ottawa was killed by a warrior from the Illinois Confederation, the Ottawa and their allies, the Potawatomi, retaliated. And when they attacked a group of Illinois people near the Illinois River, the Illinois were said to have fled to the top of the sandstone butte that's now known as Starved Rock. Trapped and surrounded, they were unable to escape or find food and eventually died of starvation, giving the landmark its name. Some variations of the story falsely claim that this led to the total destruction of the Illinois people. However, aside from oral accounts, there's no concrete historical evidence that this siege actually occurred. One of the earliest written versions of the legends comes from a man named Henry Schoolcraft, who recorded it in 1825. About 10 years after that story was recorded, a man named Daniel Hitt purchased that land that we now know today as Starved Rock from the United States government for $85 as compensation for his time in the Army. $85. That blows my mind. He then sold the land in 1890 for a whopping $15,000 to Ferdinand Walther, who had his sights on developing the land as a resort. Walther constructed the Starved Rock Hotel and a natural pool near the base of Starved Rock, neither of which are still there today. Then finally in 1911, he sold the land to the Illinois State Park Commission for $146,000. After the sale, the state initially acquired 898 acres and opened Starved Rock State Park to the public. Now that we know a little bit more about this area, let's go ahead and jump back in with our conversation with Jeff.
All right, so you went and kayaked Starved Rock.
That I did, yes.
So that's not a good way of saying it, though, right? Like you kayaked the Illinois River in Starved Rock State Park.
So funny story. I'll do you one better than that. It wasn't even in Starved Rock State Park. We were, I believe, a little south of the actual park. So the campground itself was a campground called Kayak Starved Rock. So we actually camped there. Oh yeah. Oh, they capitalized.
They really hit it on the nose, didn't
they? They truly did. Yeah. So we might have been we were sandwiched between two state parks, actually. So we camped at a campground called Kayak Starved Rock, and we were kayaking between on the south side of the river, Starved Rock, and on the north side of the river, Buffalo Rock State Park.
Buffalo Rock State Park.
Yes. We took a little leeway with the name. But same general
I hope
area.
Get sued.
Who's going to sue us? Starved Rock?
Yeah, you said the campground's name was Kayak Starved Rock.
Oh yeah, that is
exactly
the campground.
What we titled the video.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I guess we should invest in a legal department.
No,
what I'm saying.
No, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. They're not gonna. So, I probably shouldn't talk badly about the campground. It was fine. It was a nice campground.
Were you about to say that they couldn't afford lawyers, so we shouldn't be worried?
It was a smaller campground, is all I was saying. Okay, it wasn't a state park. It was like privately owned, and they had a bunch of campgrounds. And the biggest selling point was that it was a very average campground. There was nothing special about it. Honestly, some of the sites could have used a little work. I think it was very like rocky and gravelly, but the biggest selling point was that it was directly on the river, and they had their own boat launch. So everyone there had some sort of boat, a kayak, a canoe, or whatever. And in the morning, you walk it over to their boat launch, or you can do kayak rentals. I think they offered there, and tours and stuff, and just go out on the river, and you have this whole river to explore for the day, come back, and your campground's right there. So that was really cool.
That's lovely. So I love a small little family run campground that offers rentals too.
Yeah. They had a couple cargo crates. I think you'll see them either at the beginning of the video or the beginning of day 2 when we're launching in the back. Just a couple cargo containers that they had plenty of kayaks. I think they might have actually been using the same brand that I own, which is the Perception line of kayaks. Really good kayaks. So they offered, a variety of those 2-seaters, 1-seaters. and,
That's
and
really
all
cool.
guides. They had guides and tours to take you out on the river and
Really?
show you. Yeah.
Whoa. All right. I see you, Kayak Starved Rock Campground.
Yeah. No, it
Little
was
shout
pretty.
out moment.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
the whole
cool.
video will be a shout out because we went the route. Their whole thing is they give you a map. Like we didn't take a tour personally. We didn't have the time for that, and we were trying to maximize our time there. So we kind of wanted to choose how we spend our time. But their whole
Yep.
stick was they give you this map, and in the video we kayak to this island that's kind of splits the Illinois River in two. And inside that island, there's two large interconnected ponds essentially. So their tours take you
Mm.
down the cliff wall that we show in the video and then into this island with these two small ponds in it and give you a tour around there and then back to the campground. So essentially we did the route
Whoa.
that they take you on, but we did it solo without a guide.
What's the difficulty level of this? Like you say that they needed, they offered guided
Hmm.
tours. Have you kayaked a lot before? Like, did you
Yeah.
need a lot of these skills before you went out? Like, what's kind of the barrier to entry here for
I
people?
think super super beginner friendly. The river was extremely calm. It was I think I say it a number of times within the video, but it
Mm.
was an extremely
Yeah.
calm river. The biggest things that I was concerned because I was nervous going out because I think this was Alyssa's first time kayaking, so I had to keep that in mind. I
Mm.
felt confident in my skills, but
Totally.
as someone that I'm bringing along as a first timer, I want to make sure that their safety is also a top priority. So I was nervous going in there because I wasn't sure the conditions of the river. I've never been on the Illinois River or really spent any time around it. Honestly, it was extremely beginner friendly. She had no issue, and when once we were on the river, the biggest things that I was concerned about was just the size of the river. It was a really wide river. I don't know the exact length of it, but I wouldn't recommend crossing it because there it was, that wide. We did a couple half river crossings from our side of the river to the island, but we didn't cross the full thing. But at the same time, it's also a big enough river to allow like large boats and shipping freighters on it. So there was a bit of traffic depending on the day. I think the first day we ran into a bunch of like privately owned boats that were just kind of going out near the cliffs and like kind of relaxing, having a drink or two or whatever, just, your normal people with boats. But there was also
Yeah.
commercial boats going down the river, transporting different things.
It'd have to be fairly deep then
Oh,
in
yeah.
order for commercial
Hmm.
boats to be able to go down the water, right?
It must be, yeah. Like I said, we didn't fully cross the river. We stayed mostly near, I believe it was the north bank of it. And then we did
Mhm.
the half river crossing over to the island. But even between the north bank and the south bank and then the island, there was still shipping containers and shipping ships coming through that little crossing that we did.
Not to be a journalist here and really hold you accountable, but are you are you saying that there were ships shipping ships
No,
on the
no, it
water?
was more ships shipping a variety of items, probably cargo crates, but
So like
not,
just not
yeah, there
ships.
wasn't like a truck that
Yep.
you'll see going down the road, like carrying other cars or whatever, or like even another
Ooh.
truck. It wasn't anything like
Right,
that,
right.
that we saw.
Yeah.
There might be, I don't know.
I was gonna ask, so if it's deep enough for these like commercial boats to be coming to the water, were you ever concerned about, what could happen if you capsize? What would happen if Alyssa capsized?
Hmm.
Like, did you go through like a like, hey, safety talk through just so you both knew what
Oh,
was what
yeah.
was gonna happen?
Absolutely. I have a bilge pump that I carry on my kayak. And for those
What's
unaware,
that?
yeah, that's it's I think it's downstairs. I don't have it with me. I wish I did. It's essentially just a plastic tube with an outlet on it. So you stick the bottom end into the water and it's got a pump on the top and you can pump water and kind of siphon the water out of your boat. So if you take on water, if you capsize,
Mm.
especially with the kayaks that we were using, we were in sit-in kayaks. So you sit in the kayak and there's a plastic roof that comes around you versus like a sit on top, which is kind of like an open bowl that you just sit on top of. The sit on tops, if you flip over, you can just, turn it over. The water runs out. It's pretty easy. The sit
Right.
in kayaks, it's a bit of a pain in the ass if you take on water. I don't know if you've ever tried to empty. I know you used sit in kayaks when you went on your trips for a grand adventure. I don't know if you had anyone take in water or tried to empty the water out of that. it's the biggest pain in the ass. You have to be pretty much on land
Mm,
and tip one end up and then the other end up and just hope that
mm,
the water spills out through the mouth of the seat. Other than that,
yeah.
if you take on water on the lake, your boat's sinking and you got to drag it back, right? Unless you got some sort of bilge
Ye-
pump where you can, pump that water out.
Yeah, the bilge pump for our trips was primarily a toy
Hmm.
that I used when I became a pirate, and I would charge the other boats, and I would take
Oh,
the
use it
water
as
out
a
of the lake
cannon.
and use it
Nice.
as a cannon.
Yeah.
Yeah, but or just like when we were uncomfortable, you know how water just even with the skirt that goes around your kayak,
Hmm.
it can still get in underneath where your feet are, and that's
Hmm.
just eventually. I think you even mentioned it in the video. It's kayaking is not very comfortable
Hmm.
all the time.
Hmm.
So your back, your legs, your butt starts to hurt, be sore after a while.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was surprised actually at how sore like my core got.
Hmm.
Did that ever happen for you? Just because of like the rotating motion?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I believe, did you guys, I don't know, did your boats have pedals? Because I know you had a rudder, didn't you?
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
did
we
you
had
have
rudders, and
pedals
then we
that
and we
like,
also.
did your
Uh huh.
pedals move the rudder? So they moved, right?
They did.
Our
Yeah.
boats don't have rudders if you're ever on like a non-rudder kayak. Usually, if you have a nice kayak, some of the cheaper kayaks don't have the pedals, but some of the like, standard kayaks have just set in pedals that you can adjust the height, but they don't move. There's no rudder to adjust, so you push your feet against it and it gives you like leverage. So you're actively activating your
Mm,
leg muscles to push against these pedals within the boat. That's activating your core. So all your muscles are working in tandem to paddle and move the boat forward.
mm,
So especially with those types, that's where the majority of your muscles are coming, is like core, back, you
mm.
know, the rowing motion. But yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I was taught as part of those other trips, because every time I've seen people go out kayaking or canoeing or whatever,
Hmm.
it seemed like a very upper body heavy
Hmm.
motion. And he was like, if you're using your upper body primarily, like you're doing it wrong. You
Hmm.
got to use your core, or else you'll wear yourself out in 5 minutes. Is
Hmm.
that something you've experienced as well?
I think I've been lucky to when I kind of first got into kayaking. A lot of the kayaking I do, I think it's a valid distinction to make right here. Is a lot. I love river kayaking. I think you've done more
Mm,
lake kayaking, at least from the video that
mhm.
we watched.
Yeah.
Completely different games, right? Lake, you're actively fighting against the wind. Yeah, I mean the
Mm,
wind on the lake. It if you
yeah.
get a gust of wind, like a bad wind in the afternoon, that's something that is dangerous almost. Like you really have to fight that. It slows
Totally.
your time probably more than in half. It becomes a real obstacle. On the river, we have a slight current, right? So you
Mm,
can be hands off and be going. So a lot of the kayaking that I do is mostly on river. I just prefer the environment of it. You get
yeah.
constant scenery changes and a distance to cover. But yeah, I've absolutely experienced that on a lake. Just from what I've done. I haven't done very. I usually, when I'm on the lake, I usually stick close to the coast, which I'm sure you did. I don't know if you've had to like cross a lake or anything, but luckily I usually don't do much of that, because that's a pain sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, we had to cross
Hmm.
the lakes a couple of times, but for the most part, yeah, he was always like, um our guide, Hayden, was saying like we need to stay near the shore,
Yeah.
often. Was Starved Rock deep enough to where you needed to do that?
I would say so. Yeah. I would have felt, I don't know if I would say nervous, but I would have felt like a little more engaged if I went towards the middle of the river, because it was that wide where you get the same effect that
Mm,
you'll get on a river where as you're close to the shore, the waves and the currents are a little bit more manageable, but as you go into those wider areas, those deeper areas, those gusts of winds, they really start causing waves for you to fight. And we caught a little bit of that just coming in from the shore from the middle of the lake, that and just the wakes that the bigger boats were making. But overall, we
right.
stayed near the coast. It was very, very manageable.
So you mentioned that you're river kayaking for part of it on the Illinois River.
Mhm.
And then because of this, is it one island that splits it into like has two lakes, or is it two islands and there's one lake? I forget which one you said first.
I'll see if I can't throw up a picture of it. I'm looking at the map right here. It's hard to describe. I would consider it one big island with two inlets that lead to two lakes that are interconnected. So you can go in one inlet to one
Gotcha.
lake, cross over to another lake, and then out the other side.
And so the wall with really beautiful wall. You captured great footage on this trip. I
Hmm.
think that's one thing that I wanted to mention is just like how smooth it all was. It's very impressive the amount of angles you were able to capture. And it didn't seem like you handed the camera off to Alyssa very often. Like you were kind of just like operating two cameras at once,
Yeah.
mostly, which is pretty cool. Just a piece of, appreciation from someone who's filming a lot is and alone is like it's hard to capture,
Yeah.
but you captured some really cool footage of the wall in which these birds were flying in and out, and
Yeah.
I think you even identified it as a swallow, right?
Yeah. Those were cliff swallows.
Cliff swallows. Do those live only in walls like that, like riverside cliff walls, or
So I
could
don't
they
think
just
they have to be
where do they live?
specifically riverside, but most likely some sort of flat wall, cliff wall, or I would venture even to guess some sort of building wall. They're related
Oh,
to
really?
birds that I have around here a lot more. This was the first time I've
Mm.
actually seen a cliff swallow. I've read about them, and I'm a big fan of barn swallows, which are the ones that I get out here. And that's actually how I identified them because barn swallows also make those mud nests that I show on the cliff walls. They'll go around, gather mud, I believe carry that back up to like almost a mile or something and make this nest with just like a little hole. They just build them within, any type of building barn swallows do. So a lot of the times we'll see them out here underneath like a roof just within a cavity or inside any type of barn. If they can get in there, they'll make a little home. They're pretty similar to, swallowtail birds. But one thing that threw me off with these ones is they don't actually have the indicating swallowtail. Their tail feathers looked more like a normal bird, whereas like other swallows have two really long feathers on either side of their tails. So I don't know if it came across in the video. I think it did, maybe, but I was kind of questioning it when I first saw them because they were flying. They looked like swallowtails. Their nests looked like swallows, but their tails didn't. So I wasn't entirely sure. But actually, back here I have a bird book right there. And so when I got back to camp, I busted that open and identified them. So when we eventually made it back out there, I was like, oh yeah, that is for sure a swift swallow.
I don't know if the listeners can tell, but Noah is very passionate about birds.
The
He's
Yeah.
hit that that phase that I think a
Hmm.
lot of men do in their 40s, where they either buy a really big boat or car, or they get really into birding. I don't know why that's a thing, but I'm telling you, it's a thing, and you've hit that real early.
Oh yeah, birding hit me early. I've got the bug. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's so much fun. I'm gonna take a second just to give a shout out to bird. Hey yo, shout out birding. It's so much fun. You don't realize how many birds are around you that you've just never like recognized. Like the amount of biodiversity within birds just is completely overlooked. It's slept on. And the amount of excitement that I get, I think it comes across in this video specifically for one moment, but the amount of excitement that I get when I go out looking for a bird or if I'm like reading my book and I see, okay, these are really active in this area and I haven't seen those yet. Like that would be really cool to see. I know like their behaviors and stuff and I know what they can do. Like if I can see that behavior, that would be a lot of fun. It's a rush. It's like Pokemon in real life.
Pokemon in real life.
It's great. So if you haven't tried birding, try it out. Download the Merlin app and go birding. A lot of fun. Need more
Should be
birdings.
like
The more
Hillary
you're
Clinton.
aware of birding, the more you're aware of the environment and their place within it. And you can help to fight it once you get that stake into it. A lot of fun. Yeah,
All
I
right,
was super
so
excited. I was super excited to see the cliff swallows.
So you see those cliff swallows, and this is where you kind of get into the pond area, right? And that's where you had that like the very surprising part of the video that no one's really you're definitely not expecting,
Absolutely not. Absolutely not
uh,
at all. So yeah, so the
caught you
the
by
cliff
surprise.
swallows were on the north side of the river and we were following that north bank up to where the islands were and then we were crossing south towards those islands. So where we see the cliff swallows and where the viewers will see the cliff swallows is pretty much directly across from the entrances of the lake. So we shot over, did a half crossing of the lake to the island, and then we made our way inside. And yeah, on the second day, we made it there the first day, but we were short on time because we were trying to make it back to make camp dinner before while we still had light, and we just barely made that. I think I was pushing it because I'm seeing all these birds that I was excited about. But on the second day, we had more chance and more time to go out there. We skipped most of the cliff wall that I was really enjoying and went straight to the inner lakes area. And on our way in that day, I did this really goofy thing that I feel like other kayakers probably can relate to. I don't know if it's just me, that when you see like a low hanging branch and you're like, oh, I can go under that. That's fun. That's silly, right? It's like, okay, like no
Yeah.
point, check for spiders and go under. So I saw it.
Right.
It's like a gate in a race or something. So I'm going under it, and I spooked a fish, essentially is what happened. Like I went under it, and I think just the disturbance of my boat spooked a fish, and I saw one off my left hand side just kind of like jump out of the water and like back in. I was like, oh, like that was weird. That was different. That thing really got out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then another
Yeah.
one, and then another one jumped, and then five, and then 10. And dude, it didn't pick it up on the camera because when I do go under that branch, the GoPro that I had in my PFD slid down into the PFD. So when I cut to that angle, half of the left side of the screen is covered by the top half of my PFD. And that's where Alyssa was on my left hand side. But there was like 30 fish jumping in front of us and like slapping on her boat. One slapped, hit my arm, rocked me. One jumped up, landed on the top of her boat, was rocking her boat. It was madness. So I believe I identified them within the video, but those were Asian carp, which is kind of an umbrella term for a variety of different carp. There's silver carp, big head carp, grass carp, black carp, but they're an invasive species to the Illinois River. They were actually introduced to control algae in the 1970s within like fish farms and wastewater treatment plants, but they escaped into the Mississippi during floods, and they widely spread to a variety of different tributaries and different linked rivers. So from the Mississippi, they jumped over to the Illinois. They breed rapidly, and they consume mass amounts of algae, which eliminates that food source from a variety of other fish. So they're a really big issue where fishers and fishermen are noticing that they're catching a lot of Asian carp and not a lot of the other indigenous species in those areas because they are spreading so rapidly, and it's a big fight to stop them from spreading into Lake Michigan because they can decimate, $1 million fishing industry once they get over there.
All right. So we were talking about these Asian carp. They
Mhm.
attacked you and Alyssa. It seemed like when they jumped onto your boat, like they were everywhere. They hit your arm, you said, and they
Mhm.
also jumped onto your boat. Um, what were your first thoughts as you were going into that area? You go under the branch, you see one, you're like, oh, that's cool. And then they start to multiply. Like, what's going on in your head?
That's such a hard question to answer because at least the places that I like to kayak is usually very relaxing. Like I said, I like river kayaking. So usually it's like, you go out with a couple friends, bring some drinks, you're cruising down the river. And I was kind of in that mindset in that moment where we're just exploring really. And then very quickly it turns into I'm not exactly sure what's happening and I don't know how many
Yep.
there are. So when they start jumping, like at first it's like funny. And then it doesn't really come across quite as well how many there were, but Alyssa was getting swarmed by them, and I knew this was her only second time out on the river, and at least for me, I'm sure she was feeling the same way. I don't know if they made physical connection with her like they did with me, but like I said, they hit my arm, and I think once that happened, I realized I was like, oh, these guys are jumping with force like right now. Like if they hit me or a couple of them do, I could easily turn over and like I'll be under, and I'll have to deal with taking on water. So when it first started happening, and I think Alyssa's the same way when we've talked about it in the past, is I white knuckled essentially the paddle because I
Oh.
knew if they hit me or if I lose grip of this paddle and it goes under, I'm dead in the water, right? I mean, I'm just floating in a boat. So that was kind of my first instinct is like, oh, I got to make sure, like, I really have to make sure I don't lose this paddle because I'm not strapped to it in any way. And so I white knuckle set it down on the lip of the seat, and I'm looking over to Alyssa to make sure she's also not losing her paddle because if she does, I'm going to have to tow her ass back, right? But luckily we're okay. And I look over and she's doing the same thing, holding onto her paddle, eyes closed, just not wanting to see what was happening. But yeah, it was definitely a moment of like, oh, this is funny to like, okay, this could be an issue. But it wasn't actually till later when I started like got home, started researching a little bit about like Asian carp and stuff that yeah, I've come across that they are actually like a danger almost. Like in the video, it's really funny, and to me, I didn't feel too threatened. Besides, losing a paddle or turning over, but there's been people who've reported like big fish jumping with that much force. They've left bruises, they've broken bones, they've capsized, and for someone who might not be a strong swimmer or can hold their own in the water, that could become a real issue pretty quickly.
Yeah, it looked like obviously it's a highlight moment because you're always excited to capture something like that.
Hmm.
That's just spontaneous and you can't predict on camera.
Absolutely.
But it is, one thing that probably doesn't come across is everything you just kind of highlighted, right? Like all of that's racing through your mind in those split seconds when you're trying to make decisions. And
Hmm.
you kind of you become, and I think this is probably why we love being in the outdoors so much, is it it simplifies everything for you in your life, and it reduces everything down to split moments where you're just making choices, usually based off of safety and comfort,
Hmm.
right? Like nothing else matters, but are you safe?
Hmm.
And then if you're just trying to have fun, are you comfortable?
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, you'll see
Um,
the even like I get every once in a while on my timeline just like memes about like, oh, you don't realize this is what stress is for. Like humans developed and evolved stress so that they would wake up in the night when there was a bear or a wolf like circling camp or something. Like you have to be on guard. And it really, like you said, it reduces those moments to a very fight or flight thing. You have to quickly figure out how to keep yourself safe, how to keep everyone else around you safe, and then, enjoy the environment that you're in. So, 100%. I think that's it. You go out for these moments and you work your hardest to try and make sure these moments end in a silly story that you get to tell, at the next
Yep.
campfire or, on YouTube or whatever.
the podcast you run with your friend.
Yeah, that's the moment that not everybody going out gets to experience. That I've had the opportunity and the gift to experience that. I get to talk about, hey, these are Asian carp. I get to spread that knowledge of they're invasive. We're actively fighting these things. If you catch them, kill them. Eat them. They're edible. You can help to eliminate them from entering Lake Michigan. Those are the types of stories and moments that I started this from, and it's just such a small moment, but to me it's made the whole trip.
So, little known fact that the viewers probably wouldn't know about you, but I do because I've been on camping. You're a bit of a camp chef.
I like to do it when I can, but yeah, I
See,
think
that's exactly what people say when they're good at something.
uh yeah, I think this was my partner's second camping trip. And the first one being when we went to see the eclipse for my birthday. You were along with us there.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
but that was kind of my big selling point. Is I'm not too picky with camp food. I'm okay with a hot dog over a fire or some beanies and weenies, as we like to call them. I kind of wanted to go a little out and kind of delve into this area that I think is really interesting. I like camp cooking. It's a fun challenge to see how lightly you can pack and how good of a meal that you can do. I think we did my fancy mac that night. I think is what you see in the video. I'm cooking up the greens and sausages. It's a
Nice.
classic. I
Nice.
think
And
we
those,
do that on every trip. Is hard to beat the fancy mac.
do you have to do a lot of prep before you go out in
I
order to
think
have those ready
what
to
I
cook?
do for the most part, and I'm sure I'll make a video explaining them a little bit, but I just chop up pretty much the vegetables and the sausages that I add into it because I get the fresh vegetables. So they'll be as fresh as they can be out there, and then cooked sausages, so I don't really have to worry about cooking them fully. I just have to reheat and cook.
That makes sense. And then of course we capture you capture the jet boil like just boiling over,
I think,
and Alyssa's trying to call your attention to the fact that it's a problem, and
yeah,
your first reaction is what?
I think she caught me behind the camera at that moment. If Fancy Mac is a staple for me, boiling over the jet boil is also a staple for me for every camp trip. I just can't get boiling. Like that thing is strong. Like if you turn that thing up, it
Yeah.
boils fast, and I never see it coming. And I always have to boil it over at least once probably, and then burn your hands as you're trying to tip it over and dump it out.
They should put that in the name.
If
They
only there
should
was
put
some sort of
boiled to give you the
sign.
heads up.
Yeah. I mentioned this in the video, but we were cooking our dinner that first night, and after dinner, it was a car camping campsite. So we had our car just
Yeah.
up in the lot with us. So we kept most of the food in like a cooler or whatever accessories that we had in the actual car. And the car decided to die out on us at about like
Ooh.
10:30 or something like that. The back trunk has an automatic lift to it, and it went up, and then you hit the button to close it and it goes and doesn't close all the way. You got to like close it manually. We're like, okay, this is weird. Try starting the car. Nothing. It was a dud. And I don't have a jump pack or anything on me. So we're
Mm.
starting to freak out. I was like, okay, well, how are we going to lock any of our important stuff in the car? These campsites are really
Right.
close together and we don't know who we're with. So I listen to too many true crime stuff where I'm always kind of like thinking ahead of like, okay, worst case scenario, what's going to happen? We're dead exhausted. Dinner took longer than we wanted. We got back at sundown, so we didn't make it before we didn't make dinner before the sun went down. And we had to like wander over to one of our neighbors and just wake them up because they were already asleep. So if you're by any chance watching this, thank you guys so much. It was another young couple like us. But yeah, that
Nice.
was a long night when we were trying to relax. So the next day when we got attacked by the fish, it was a bit of a, okay, we're going back out in the river. We're going to try and maximize our time. We're still tired from yesterday.
Totally. Yeah, it sounds like it was a taxing night. Um, was You mentioned this is like the second time Alyssa's ever gone camping. Is she sleep better than the first time?
No, she she didn't. The first time was really good. I That was the two things that I when I was kind of getting together our gear list for two, camping for two. Those were my two priorities, was one, cooking, and then two, sleep. I went with a big Agnes sleeping bag, a two-person sleeping bag that connects two normal size sleeping pads together. But I had most of our gear here, and I was just in my mindset of packing for one person, so I only packed my one sleeping pad. So when we got there, we had to share a normal size sleeping pad, which if you guys are any type of backpacking or camper, there's the normal size sleeping pad, like the sleeping pad, the regular, and then there's a wide, which is like a normal size for a normal person. That the regular is pretty tight. So we had to somehow share that one and not be on the cold ground during the night. So it was a pretty uncomfortable the night of, hey, you take the pad. Oh, I want the pad. Like, let's try and share the pad. You take the pad. I don't, like, I forgot it. That first night was a little bit
Right.
uncomfortable, and we did lose some extra time on the second day because we had to go to the nearest Walmart and buy the cheapest
Mm.
$30 Celtic pad that we can find. So the first night was a bit rough between one sleeping pad and the car dying, but the next night we had everything figured out. And luckily you'll get a $30 sleeping pad or a $180 sleeping pad, which one's better, video at some point.
Yeah. So it was a really smooth and easy trip.
I did mention it a couple times in the video that the whole trip kind of felt like we were pressed on time because I was maxing my time on the
Mm.
water. So we were rushing back to get back on that first night to make dinner before sundown. And then the second night we had to check out by 3 and then make our cabin rental, which was a little past Starved Rock, by 5 or something like that.
Yeah. So the video kind of ends at, y'all finally get a moment to rest in terms of like, there's no other extra logistics, no fish jumping and attacking you, no like, timing that you need to make.
Hmm.
You just get to drive up to your campsite, and that like cabin. I was gonna say building, but I
Mhm.
know the name. That cabin was actually really nice.
It was way nicer than we thought it would be. So we were trying to do kind of split the middle. We were going to camp for a little bit and then do some glamping. We came across this little company called Getaway Cabin, which is actually now Postcard Cabin. They changed their name. It was like $100 a night or something like that, extremely reasonable. So weren't expecting much. We knew it was going to be like a tiny house, but it was so nice. It had electricity, it had kitchen, a shower, a bathroom, hot water. And let me tell you, that hot shower after spending 2 full days kayaking and camping, it doesn't get much better than that. That was nice. I'm sure we'll talk about that cabin a little bit more when next episode and after we get to the getaway adventure.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess you'll just have to sit down and watch the video, and then come back and watch this podcast where we're gonna break down that adventure
Mhm.
in more detail and see what that was like. Because even I don't know a lot about what went on out there.
Yeah. A lot of murder. It wasn't me. It was like years, like so long ago. It was like 1960 or something.
Yeah, give us a 30-second pitch on what that episode was like. I should keep watching.
Yeah, absolutely. So this episode was Kayak Starved Rock. Like I said earlier, the next episode will be hiking Starved Rock. So we booked the getaway cabin, and every day after that, I think we spent 2 or 3 days there. We spent a day driving out to Starved Rock and just touring the various different canyons and cliff sides and waterfalls that they have to offer there. So we scaled the actual Starved Rock Butte. And then we visited some of the famous canyons and outcroppings of the St. Peter sandstone. And on our last day, we made it over to the canyon and the caves that the bodies were found from the, I think, 1960s murders of the 3 Chicago women.
I want to watch it now that you've given me
Did I hook you?
a little bit of a teaser. I'm gonna pass the hosting duties back to you. Can you ride us out? And tell the people where they can find us.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Noah. This is your host, Jeff. You can find us on all the socials. We are at Adventures Live Productions on Instagram and Facebook. We are at Adventures Live on TikTok, X, and Blue Sky. We are ALP Campground on Discord. You can find the link in the description. Check us out on Patreon to find our adventure packet, including our itinerary and additional information if you want to recreate this video yourself. That will be available over there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video. Getaway.
See y'all later. Bye bye.